Aloha, lovelies, and
Hello.
welcome to our chat tonight, Growing a New Mycelium. I am very happy to be able to introduce Colin Walker from the Minorca Consciousness Group. Welcome to your show.
Thank you so much, Tony. As always, it's lovely to see you and be with you. Just welcome everybody to the show, if we're going to call it a show, chat. Thank you for joining us, everybody. You're very welcome to be here. If you've got, we're going to go on to the conversation. I've got a few questions I'd like to ask Tony. No pressure there, Tony. and if you guys watching, have you got any questions? Please just put them in the chat. We'll see them as they're coming in, and we'll do our best to start answering some of them in about maybe 20 minutes time or something. We'll get some of this chat going first. But thank you so much for joining us, Tony, from all the way from Luxor again.
Yes, my pleasure as always. Had a little break from Luxor. I've just been to Greece for a few days, so that was nice. But
to Greece?
Yeah. We went
to the islands. Oh, okay. And how did that go?
That was lovely. We just have to do our visa run every year. So living in Egypt. So we went and just shopped for 3 days and then came back. It was great.
Just out of curiosity, it's funny that. What's the energy like in Greece? Did you?
It felt really. Yeah, it was nice. It was winter time. Winter, so it's like quite rainy. There wasn't a lot of people around, but it was really quite calm, and I really enjoyed it. We all did. Yeah, it was very nice.
Beautiful. Yeah. I like Greece. I've got to confess, I like Greece. It's got something about it. It's one of them countries what's just got some, don't know, energies again in it. It's got that energy. So that and Iceland. Iceland's got beautiful energy. Anyway, so growing a new mycelium then. Where do we start with this one? Because we're entering into this, we know we're in that period of transition between, let's say, the old world and the new world, or the old earth and the new earth, as some people are calling it. I never know what to call it, to be honest. Do you refer to it as a new earth, or how do you refer to it, Tony?
Well, I don't really have a word for it yet, I think, because there's a lot of cliches, and all of those cliches seem to have been inverted as well. So, you know, what do we do with that? So at the moment, it's simply whatever it is that we're unfolding into.
Yeah.
So, but something did come up around that actually, and that was a cache, as in it felt like the old Atlantis was about to re-rise, and then I was feeling into that, whatever it is that we're shifting into, and I thought, it's not even that. There's no re-emergence. You mentioned a couple of times in previous conversations about the anything, and I was feeling into that, going, that's it. It's not a re-emergence of anything. It's actually, we're literally wiping the records, literally wiping the Akash and starting anew. So we don't know what's on the other side of that. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I like the idea of like growing a new mycelium, growing a completely different network, growing literally a new fabric on which we base our reality. And I don't think we're going to know what that is until the other senses that have been lying dormant for so many millennia come back online.
Sorry.
Yeah, so where to start with that? I have a few thoughts about where to start with that, but what were you going to say first?
That did something to me when there's a couple of bits to this, so I'm going to try and be as quick as I can, because I know the fact that you kind of, I don't know, went into that, the re-bit, the re-imaging, rebirth, you know, remember it, all this thing, anything with a re in it, it sends us back for me. But the fact that you actually took it and looked at it, it touched me in a certain way, in a beautiful way. But then something else even more was to come out of that and say about the Akash that we're going to create a new Akash. Now, I've got to confess, I don't think I've even heard of anything of that nature at this minute. I think you're the first one I've heard. Well, you are, definitely you are the first one I've heard to say of the potential or possibility of creating a new Akash. Therefore, it means exactly what you've just described. And that's, for me, is absolutely, it's stunning. Absolutely stunning. I love the thought of it. I've previously thought, okay, we're coming to an end of a cycle where we're clearing not just the karmic connections, if we look at it, even if we, you know, I'm speaking loose with the karma aspect at the moment, but the previous lifetimes. And if we're clearing, let's say, from a cycle of maybe 8, 9, 10, 12 lifetimes, all the small aspects, as well as this recent previous lifetime, here and now, we can see why there's so much clearing going on, because it's almost like, okay, we're about to go on to that new cycle and we've got to clear everything. That means exactly what you've just described for me. It fits perfect with that, clearing completely the old thoughts, emotions of everything. So we're basically, it's almost as if we're dissolving, or not dissolving, maybe putting everything what was in and I'll say the Akashic records, what's in the Akashic records, into a specific format or system, and we're going to create what you've just said, a new Akashic. I just love what you've just said, Tony. I love what you just said. I can't express it, because I think that's where we are. We're in that phase of new thoughts coming in, new thinking. So, sorry, yeah, I just wanted to put that one over.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, so, you know, if we think of, I've got 1,000 thoughts going through my head and I'm trying to make it into one cohesive sentence.
You got an hour.
Okay. You know, so part of this has been coming out of being here in Egypt and getting a sense of some kind of awakening happening with the ancestors, as I've mentioned to you before.
Yeah.
Tuning into my own ancestral field and having a sense that actually even the ancestral fields themselves are starting to dissolve, like really just melt into, and so all of the individuation, even on that inanimate or non-incarnate realm, even those aspects are starting to dissolve, right?
Yeah.
So we're not being bound by those energetic structures anymore. And so, you know, we've been doing a lot of work around creating new businesses, around creative kind of businesses, healing work, and, you know, looking at the beautiful different, you know, cultural aspects that are informing that and inspiring that. But what I'm finding is the more we get into that and looking at, you know, the beautiful old, you know, pharaonic designs and things like that, and looking at the meanings for them, I'm suddenly finding I don't want to replicate any of those. I don't want to tune into those, because and I'm even getting chills down my spine as I say that, because they're relevant to a time that doesn't exist anymore. And the medicine from them belongs to a time that doesn't exist anymore. And so when I'm really tuning into, you know, what can we bring through as a medicine from the future, for the future, to help shepherd us through this bit between the stories, we need to drop all of it. And it's like, you know, with crystals, when we were kids, my father was a chemist, right? So as kids, me and my brother, we played with different chemicals, and, you know, and much to the, I don't know how to work for our lungs, but, you know, you dissolve certain chemicals and then you let them crystallize. And then you take the crystals and you dissolve those and you let them crystallize again. And every time you do that, it's becoming purer and purer. And the crystals become bigger and bigger the more pure they are. And so I feel like we're going through this crystallization process right now where, you know, trying to go back and draw through the old wisdom feels a little bit to me like taking the crystals and crushing them and trying to mold them into something new. Yeah. Instead, I feel like we need to completely dissolve them so that they can grow themselves, because they have their own innate wisdom. Whatever world or realm we are moving into, we need to let all of this dissolve and let it grow itself. And so we ourselves are going to kind of dissolve and just grow naturally with that as part of that natural structure. And so I feel like part of that dissolving is, like, you know, dissolving, as we know, all of the outmolded beliefs and things like that, but also dissolving our entire ideas about how we relate to each other. And a thought came to me today that in the structures of like business and competition and all of these kinds of things, the way that we're taught to compete in sports, compete to be the best in school, compete for jobs, compete for all of these things in this scarcity mindset. When you think about it, that's quite animalistic. They need to dominate. And if I don't get that thing, or I have to get that thing, and therefore something else doesn't get that thing. It's scarcity based, that needing to overpower and kind of overthrow and dominate. But plants, and this is where I come into the mycelium, and I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of exceptions to this rule, but just as a general idea, but plants tend to be more cooperative, and they don't have to go out and dominate. They can work together to create this cohesion where things are all supported and they're in balance. There's no waste. All of the waste is naturally recycled. You know, nature doesn't make waste like that. And the thing that I love about plants is that they simply stay where they are. They know what they need. They send out messages in different ways in order to be able to bring in what they need. And so they don't need to go out and strive for it. And, you know, one instance is that if, you know, trees need to reproduce. So what do? They bring the gift of flowers and fruit for the birds. And then just through that pure gifting, then the birds come and eat the seeds and spread them. And so they work for them out of the just pure generosity of just their pure nature. And a friend was saying, I don't know if this is true, but I like this idea that actually when the trees actually create rain because they send out some kind of, I'm not sure if it's a chemical or an electromagnetic signal, or they send out something, and I need to look further into this, that actually attracts the clouds to them. So there's so much of this connection, and they don't need to strive and get out there. They can simply put, with their pure intent, attract what they need. They still need to grow. So I'm not suggesting that we all, you know, curl up on our couch and just think what we want and expect it to come at the front door. But I feel like if we can move closer to that essence, that we can just get closer to what we really are as humans.
Totally.
Or as
yeah. Pardon?
Or as men and women. As if, yeah. Otherwise, we go into a whole other language, a whole other conversation about human, the monster.
Yeah.
The living man and the living woman.
Well, human, I always put it with colour, as in hues, which is what we are. Yeah. We're colourful beings, aren't we? Beings of light. But just picking up, if I may, on a couple of them pieces, Tony, really. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we can't dismiss this aspect of this area, what you mentioned about the trees drawing rain to them, sending the signals out, it just would not surprise me at all. You know, and I've not even thought about it. And it's kind of might stimulate my thoughts in the week, and I might actually dive into it and look, try and find the process of the possibility of why that takes place. And then the other couple of aspects, what you had mentioned, is this leaving everything, dissolving every single thing. I've been of this belief that we are infants of the universe, and I've never felt that to be derogatory to anybody, ourselves as a species. I'm playing on words, obviously, in one way, but at the same time, we can see this if we use or refer to the 3D reality at the moment in a certain form. We can see that all of it is, let's just say, changing for a minute. It's changing. We know that. And I believe it's transforming. And in that transformation, that energy, what's moving, that's the one what's stimulating whatever is stimulating in ourselves as celestial, cosmic, ethereal beings, whatever we refer to ourselves as. It's stimulating those energies and waves to take us through to the fourth and fifth dimensions, and etc. Okay. And it means that everything in that realm has got to be, I'm going to use the word, purified, so to speak. It's got to be cleansed and cleared. We may call it healed, whatever term it is. But for me, all frequencies of the 3D reality have got to be vibrating at their natural ratio and their natural resonance. And in doing so, it's projecting us to the fourth and fifth and so on. Okay, it's giving us that expansion of awareness, expansion of consciousness. And in that expansion, or in this transition, as the expansion takes place, is this multitude of questions of, okay, can we have a glimpse into the future of what it's going to be like? Yes, I believe we can, definitely. Can we get the full picture of what's going to be happening to the old world? And I think you've just put it in a brilliant way, that, you know, creating a newer cache, which means the older cache is going to be changed, and everything in it purified. So this transition, which I think is absolutely amazing, because it gives us something of the stimulation of progress, the crystallizing of light. Funny talking about crystals and the crystallizing of things. I was in a meditation a few days ago, and I don't know what session it was. There was a group of us, and I was watching triangular geometric shapes and a light coming into them, and I was informed that the light was getting crystallized as it got to the kind of the triangle, almost inverted or facing whichever direction it was. But but they were saying the light has been crystallized. So it's interesting. You've now brought in the crystal and the crystallization of, you know, through the through nature itself. So for me, when I'm trying to kind of look and view and get a glimpse of things, of where, not so much where we're going, because I don't mind where we're going. It's like I have an inner knowing of where we're going, and we can describe it on different, you know, facets and layers, etc. I don't think that's any issue whatsoever of where we're going. I think what I find most interesting is the transition of what we're in at the moment, and I see clearly, and I've always believed and firmly believed and understood, we can forget everything we know, everything in our mind, in our vocabulary, in our awareness, up to the moment what's just gone. Everything previous to that, forget it, it's gone. You know, it's like, because it's only baggage still. It's old thoughts. You know, the thought Colin's just had 5 minutes ago, now if he's not utilized, it's baggage again. You know, and this is part of this transition. It's like, forget everything you know, because you're going to have completely new awareness and completely new knowledge And then that kind of ties into this Akash and the tree, calling rain to it, and this blending with and harmonizing with nature, I think, itself. I think one of the biggest issues, let's say, well, I use the word problem. I think one of the biggest problems humanity's had is because it said this ego, what wants to control, out of the competitiveness, wants to control everything, then it also wants to control life and nature. And nature sat there laughing its head off, going, you've got no chance. You've got absolutely no chance. You can try and try and try, but it ain't going to happen. So just get used to the idea. Because eventually, when we talk of being at one with all things, for me, that means and represents and reflects being in total harmony with nature itself. And nature, then, it's not so much nature will guide us, we are nature itself as well. So it's like together, this is the new stuff is going to ripen and show itself and arise out of it all. So,
and I think one of the biggest issues we're going to have in that transition is the fact that we, the term addicted to one's own suffering.
Oh.
Because there's no greater antidepressant than anger, right?
Yeah.
And and adrenaline. So whether we know it or not, for the most part, humanity is still deeply addicted to adrenaline and to the struggle, and to the rat race. And if we're going to move to a space beyond that, we're going to need to move through a very deep boredom for a while, and that can be really depressing. And it was I came back here to Luxor after quite a time of a lot of movement and kind of turbulence, lots of stuff going on. And I came back and just finally, after quite a number of weeks, had the time to catch my breath and just went, oh wow. It was literally like a deflated balloon. It when you're so used to being super charged, that whether it's parasites in our body that are feeding off that acidic kind of environment, or whether it's just the constant chemical hits we get in our brain from stress, whatever it is that's perpetuating it, to get out at the other side, we're going to need to deal with that. Because if we're going to move into a space where the competition and the stress and the aggression and all of those highs, even the negative highs, are still highs, they're still peaks in energy. Being able to mitigate that and come into that middle path and be okay in that, it takes quite a level of discomfort. Because when we're in that middle path, well, that's where we face ourselves. Even the pit of despair sometimes is better than boredom.
I would agree with that.
With me, at least something's happening. So
I would actually agree with that.
So I feel like that's one of the things that we're really going to need to move through. And to really adapt ourselves through in order to get to a state where we don't need to perpetuate the dramas. So and another thing that's been coming up a lot lately, just as we're starting, to move away from more of the superficial side of, I want to say capitalism. I don't know if that's the right word. The distraction of the physicality around us, and the drawing to start to move more within and have more of a deeper connection with ourselves. Along that way, we're going to keep bumping into this spiritual capitalism. And the marketing machine is going to be really pushing that harder and harder and harder. the more that people are going to try and find themselves, the more the marketing machines are going to say, I can help you find yourself. Come over here.
We're seeing it.
Right. And
we're seeing it right now.
Exactly. And I was talking to a friend today. He said he had a guest, and she was talking about her lack of confidence or her inadequacies because she considered that she was quite a spiritual person, but that she didn't look the part. And I'm like, what have we come to where the idea of being a spiritual person is dependent on your appearance of your physical body? Okay, but that's what we've come to. And the idea that you can be in a body and not have a spiritual experience, it kind of defies gravity. We are spirits having a human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experience. We are just, all of us are spiritual by nature. So kind of saying, I am so spiritual and I can help you be spiritual too. I think we're going to see a lot of that coming out.
I've already seen it. I think we're seeing it. I think we're both seeing it, Tjoni, already. And it's interesting this point has been raised because it kind of shows and reflects a certain aspect that we're witnessing some of the old material, physical mentality overlapping into the spiritual, kind of into the spiritual space, so to speak. Because we've got two spaces on the go. We've got this capital marketing and economic zone, what we've been existing in the system. And as minds are coming out of it and migrating into the spiritual space, they're bringing some of those, and I'm going to use the word delusions. They're bringing some of those delusions into this spiritual space. I find it kind of fascinating because then to claim, okay, I'm a spiritual mind, I can help you. Okay. And I can't help this, but I'm going to make reference to, bless her, whoever she was, saying she doesn't look the part for spiritual. You know, I mean, there's all sorts of layers behind that one in there, what we could open up and pick away at. But what came to my mind was, okay, so how do we accept this little bald-headed Buddha set on a mountain in his saffron robes? You know, does he look spiritual to anybody? It's all perception again, isn't it, in that respect? And I think maybe that's just part of the process, and that will be dissolved as well. That mindset, eventually, the marketing of aspects will be dissolved as well. I think what we've got is this. Some people are, I don't want to say thought leaders, but some people are just leading the way and others are not following, but they want to know certain things. And we've got that kaleidoscope, that mosaic of different diverse minds playing out at the moment. For me, it comes back to acceptance that this is the way it is at the moment. Everybody's doing what they're doing at the moment. And yet at the same time, if somebody's feeling they're missing out or something's not quite going as beneficial as it could be for them, then it's up to people, I think, to kind of stop and pause and go, okay, we need to sort that person out. We need to help that person. This is the whole basis of a spiritual mind, so to speak. This is the whole basis of where we're going, is to support and help each other in the community, what we if we call it spiritual space, and remove our mind away from that type of those types of energies. Where, I mean, for me personally, it's I don't know, I sit in that space where it's like, okay, all you can do, Colin, is the best you can do, and present, you know, what you've got to present, so to speak. And I'm always cautious with taking some of those old aspects into the spiritual space, because it's not that I don't believe they don't belong there, And I don't think any of us can say, well, this is what spirit is, this is what spiritual means. All right, we can all have a bash at it and go, okay, let's see if we can define it. I've done it myself, you know, spiritual, caring, compassionate mind, etc. You know, and yet we fall back and go, okay, what we've got is this is part of the transition as we're moving forward, if we're moving forward into that new beautiful space to come. So yeah, it's a viable point you've just raised, Tjoni. Definitely.
I think like it requires a certain level of kind of humility on our own part as well, because you know I was in that state for many years of like, you know, loving all the tools and the right clothes and the, you know, the dreamy things and the sticks and the chimes, you know, all of the stuff. And it played its part because it helped me connect to a part of myself that maybe I wouldn't have connected to. But the thing that I've liked watching over the last few decades, as I've seen people in various communities grow from teenagers to middle age, is seeing the ones that have kind of decided that they're going to, you know, jump on a spiritual path, get all the right clothes and all the right tools and put all the things in their hair and like do all of the stuff, and then bit by bit just start to realize that those things aren't important. And so, you know, there's quite a few people I've seen over a couple of decades that were going from, you know, I'm so spiritual, to just quietly going about their business, you know, having finally shed all of the stuff, realizing that the attachment to all of those physical things, it isn't necessary in the end. They're just training wheels. I just referred to them as training wheels today.
Yeah.
So if you become too attached to those things, then they become a cage, just like anything else. And especially in, you know, the New Age movement that was created by the same people that, you know, created the hippie movement and created the feminist movement and created all the different movements. You know, they're all just different cages. So and it's not to say that all of the tools are useless, because they're not, but it's just to keep them in context. And, you know, things like tarot cards, for instance, well, all they're supposed to be really is a distraction, so that while you're tuning into someone and seeing what's going on, you're not just like staring at them blankly. You know, it's nice to have something to kind of, you know, distract you so you're not looking like a weirdo. But if there's no cards, you can still tune in, and you don't have to be, you know, trapped in the grid of whatever they are either, or whatever tool you're wanting to use, you know. So I think you can utilize these things to a certain extent, but just understand that all they're doing is really connecting you to your own inner wisdom. They don't hold the wisdom themselves.
Yeah, I think
necessarily.
Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, necessarily. I'm just going to correct myself there, because then there are certain things that do hold certain energies, of course, that you can tune into, but superficially, I should say that.
Yeah, I think I've always found anything of the, I mean, we can call it psychometry, and it's an interesting topic because it represents the psyche, which then we have to go to the mind and consciousness and awareness, etc. And so therefore we can't remove the word psyche from those aspects at the moment anyway. But I've always found any item of psychometry, and it's amazing. I do really think they are really good tools to help self-growth and benefit others as well, such as the cards, oracle cards, tarot, etc. But that we've got that innate ability here. I've always tried to encourage people to drop the psychic aspects and tools, so to speak. We know they're, in a way, they're props to a certain point. Ultimately, what I've always believed, they're just an extension of our own consciousness and our own awareness, because it's our awareness what's sensing what's going on there in them. So it's like, okay, so why don't you just forget that lot and come here straight away? that's the route I took, even though I've obviously got some awareness of all the different psychometry aspects. And I think this is, again, where we've just recently had a conversation which is leading in a way to this channeling aspect becoming more prevalent in the next year, and trying to encourage places to be open to that, to because there's it's naturally happening. There's more and more souls starting to channel, and they're not taking the old conventional route, which is, for some minds, is very shocking. It's like, well, this is just the way it is. Everybody is where they are at the moment, where they're at, and this light what's shining, and this shift is just doing what it's doing to each individual. And all I believe we can do is encourage each other. Be cautious and use discernment, but we've got to still encourage each other when we are in that same space as others who have got those aspects. But then going a bit further, I think my understanding is, and I just want to say, I've just been reminded, I haven't even said hello, good evening to everybody who's here. Somebody just stopped me and went, Colin, just say hello to everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're enjoying the conversation. And thank you, Tjoni, for joining us for this beautiful chat. So yeah, it's almost as if we that ascension process is taking us way beyond the old stuff. Do you want to say hello to anybody, Tjoni?
Hi everyone. Yeah, hi. Thanks for being here and just hanging out with us and listening to us ramble on.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions, guys, just please put your questions in. If you'd like to ask any questions, I've got a list of about 11 questions here, and I ain't even asked one yet. So, but this is going to be constant live chats with Tjoni anyway for the foreseeable future.
That's fine with me.
Maybe I could chuck one in then, Tjoni, if that's all right. So off the list, first one I come to, which is not the first question I wanted to ask, but the second one. So in fact, we covered the natural one, is schools and education. Where do you see that going as we're going forward?
That requires a whole session. Okay, let's just correct that word to indoctrination. Yeah. All right, well, that'll take us out for the next 20 minutes if you like. I actually did a talk on education about a decade ago. Okay, what is school even for? Let's just start there. So to me, school is to equip ourselves with the tools in order to be able to thrive in the world, and so, but for some reason, nobody teaches us about cooking and relationships and managing our emotions and how to deal and how to create money and wealth and abundance for us and natural healing, like none of the actual life skills. So to me, education in the future will really, and it's already actually, there's a lot of really good spaces that are creating this kind of environment now. But to me, it's about giving kids a nourishing, safe, supportive space for them to basically teach themselves. Because as long as they feel safe, the learning happens naturally. And this is another conversation I was having just yesterday about the brains and the difference between the limbic brain and the cerebral cortex. Is that the right bit? and the reptilian brain. So when we're in constant stress mode, our reptilian brain, the oldest brain, that's the one that's firing up when we're constantly in stress. Whether it's, running away from the big angry lion or, just trying to get through that deadline at work. And it stops us being able to think rationally. We simply can't. So children are in this environment where there's a whole lot of pressure and stress to be able to do these exams. Yeah. under extreme stress, and they're supposed to be able to think. Like, why? It doesn't make sense. So to me, my idea of the ideal school would be in a community environment where kids get to work on different projects. And this is one of the ideas of Ricardo Semler from Simco. He was talking about this a long time ago. He started the Lumiere School, where learning happens through projects. And each project is about 3 months. And that might be building a bike or building a chook shed, or like all these different creative, like hands-on kinesthetic kind of projects. And so children aren't separated by age, they're separated by interest. And so you have groups from 3 years right up to mid-teenagers all working together. And so they're sharing a common interest, and also you're bringing leadership in because the older kids are naturally going to take care of the younger kids. And you still have he called it like a mosaic of learning. So you still have outcomes, you still have skills that you want people to learn, but it's not through examination, it's through experience. And so then I see that what the classroom is actually, it's not the place where the learning happens, it's where the integration and the rest and the retreat happens. And the actual learning happens integrated into the community, doing projects with the adults in the community, so that the relationship between the children and adults is collaborative and cooperative, not authoritarian. Yeah. Because it just doesn't work. It creates these divides, and we're so divided in our culture into children and teenagers and young adults and old adults. It's all so separate. But I think that we can really do with a whole lot more integration there. And, we learn so much from children. And when I was teaching a lot of circus and stuff like that in school, the greatest joy was simply just being able to provide an environment for them to get creative and play. And the stuff they came up with was extraordinary. And so you can come in and offer a framework of skills and techniques and ideas, and then let them go for it. Yeah. And doing that and meeting the kids where they are, not where you're expecting them to start from, gives them the opportunity to just relax and grow and flourish. And I had kids that were completely dysfunctional, who couldn't even sit down for 2 seconds in a classroom, because they came from dreadful abuse and stuff. So, if you're not safe at home, how on earth are you going to feel safe and secure in a classroom? And they would just end up just about running the show, because you just trust them. Yeah. And it took me a long time to do that, because I still have my own ego and my own control issues. And it's like, why aren't you doing this? And I was lucky to be working alongside some other really wonderful facilitators that taught me kind of like, I ended up calling it the yoga of teaching, where it's not about touching your toes, it's about the journey there and meeting your body where it's at. Well, it's the same thing with kids, to meet them where they're at and find a common ground, so that then you can start to expand from there. Yeah, so totally. So that's what I see the education of the future is, and so that they really do become young adults.
Yeah, totally. It sounds beautiful, Tjoni. Sounds beautiful. Just quickly, one aspect what I believe is, as we go into that space in the future, that this process at the very beginning, when the baby is born, that it'll be, in the future, it will be recognized as a soul immediately and respected, and from that moment, nourished and looked after and nurtured, so it grows and senses the environment it's in from its own side, and as it develops through the years, that then will determine that ability, if we call it ability, but that creative energy of that mind, and it will play its role in this in whatever space is in the future in its most natural, correct form. And I totally agree with what you were saying about the control aspect, because I think we're back to trust in that respect, where if we trust ourselves, we have a tendency to hand over or trust others, whether it's a child or an adult, a lot more, and therefore that other mind picks up on that energy and it feels comfortable with it, and it almost feels protective over the trust it's been shown and reflected back to it, and go, okay, I am naturally going to respect that trust, what's been shown, because I like the feeling inside me, what it gives me, and I can do, or at least attempt to do, what I feel creatively with my life in this world or on this plane, whatever it is. I've just quickly, if I may then, let's go over to Sue, because I know Sue's, if we can read this. So Sue Townsend, thank you, Sue. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Could it be said that as humanity attunes and collaborates its energy fields in line with higher frequencies, it is transforming and refining its whole being? It is a natural part of evolution, including the dissolution of the 3D version of Akash, as part of our ongoing massive shift in consciousness. Everything of a dense vibration is naturally being burnt off, a process being accelerated through self-realization. This process has already taken place in other realms where we have, was part of that missing. Maybe so. Just to continue, maybe it's possible that teaching, learning, be through knowing in the form of unfolding awareness, because society is likely to be very different from anything we currently understand, and therefore education would be nothing like we perceive today. Well, over to you, Tony. I've definitely got a take on this one. Thank you so much, Sue. Brilliant question. Or what thoughts, anyway?
Yeah, I agree, absolutely, and it comes back also to being able to access creativity, not to become artists, but to learn critical thinking, and and so that then we as adults and teachers and custodians of the next generation, we need to come through and just basically make sure that everybody's safe, and that when people are actually asking for things, to help facilitate them to find their own answers. And so I think that the best form of teaching is facilitating as much as possible, and just asking the right questions so that the kids end up coming to some form of truth that is helpful for them. So yeah, I like the word unfolding. It all just happens naturally. And the other thing that I think is really important, if we're going to be appropriate role models, is to make sure that we walk the walk. Because they pick up so much more. Kids pick up way more on our actions and our attitudes and our energy than they do our words.
Yeah. And
so
I think
that also requires cleaning ourselves out, so that we can be as non-reactive as possible.
Yeah, I think the word what's just sprung to mind there for me, Tony, is authenticity. There's this, we know, as we kind of peel the layers back, as the healing as it's understood takes place, that we're kind of opening up to that point where we know we can be authentic beings, because we are them. That's what we are. And the system which we've been born into, in a way, we've allowed the layers to be placed around us, which has prevented or blocked that authenticity. There's the times we want to say things, times we want to do things and act and whatever we want to do. Anyway, and I think authenticity, being authentic, is a massive thing at the moment, and it's going to continue to be. The thing, just if I may, going back to what Sue was saying, the dissolution of the 3D version of the Akash, definitely, Sue, transforming and refining its whole being. And I think this is key to maybe understanding part of this change. It's the whole thing. The whole thing is being affected. Everything is being affected. Like you were saying earlier, Tjoni, it's like there's no this no more. That's it. It's gone. And then, but the big one, what jumped out to was the knowing. This knowing business, and I absolutely love this energy of knowing, because it removes the mind from learning. In knowing, there is no learning. There's just knowing. So therefore, learning doesn't exist. And I think we're on the brink where the children of the future are going to land on the planet and have this intuitive knowing about virtually everything what's going on with themselves and what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be, well, whatever they're supposed to be in every moment. And I find that really fascinating, because it's funny, because I wanted us to go into, I know I've touched a question here, schools and the education system, and it's like, there's a lot in there. I know there is. And one of them, which I wanted to touch on, was this, what Sue's brought up, getting the mind to a point where maybe we're going to exist somewhere where there's no more learning. We've done the learning, and let's say we've used and utilized the vibration of learning. And as the ascension continues, we're starting to move towards the frequency and vibrations of knowing. That's what's going to happen. And we've all experienced this. We all know what knowing actually is. We just know. Nothing else comes into play. It's just, I know it, and off, and we don't debate it, we don't discuss it, we don't second think it. It's a bit like intuition. First thought, I know it, and off. And it won't just affect the education system. I think it's just going to be us and who we are as we move forward, because we are knowing beings. But that's my take on it. And so, any more thoughts, Tjoni, on that one?
Well, I agree with that, and it makes me think of coming back to the idea that the ancestral realm, for instance, just seemed to be really dissolving into just this soup, just this basic kind of awareness, but a singular kind of awareness. And I would say that when it's not so much that we're moving towards a space of knowing, but we're simply shedding or burning off, as Sue beautifully said, all of the layers that are cutting ourselves off from what we know intuitively. And any information that we want or that we seek, if we just sit still for long enough, it will come to us. The thing is that we're so addicted to distraction that the thought of meditating on something even for an hour is torture for some people. So what if it takes 5 or 10 hours or a few days to receive all the information that you need on something? You just turn yourself inside out with boredom. So we need to deal with the boredom aspect in order to get through to that bit. And also we've been so conditioned that in order to have that skill or to have that knowledge, you have to work really freaking hard.
Yeah.
Really hard, and pay a lot of money in order to have that knowledge, have that information, have that experience. There's certain things that, okay, if I want to knit, okay, I might be able to figure it out, but it's probably a lot easier if Aunt Judy can actually show me how to knit. I mean, there's certain technical skills that, yeah, it's nice to learn, but as far as information goes, honestly, the more and more I've been going down all the various rabbit holes in the last, 5 years or so, the more I have been throwing the baby out with the bathwater and just getting rid of everything, because information is manipulatable. It's really easy for, if we're relying on our minds, on our brains that are simply processes of information, it's really easy for them to be manipulated. And so, earlier in our chat, you said something about the future. Can we see the future? I don't know that it's important to see the future. I think it's more important to feel it, because I think that's really going to be our compass.
Yeah,
That's
interesting.
I think that's really the antenna, like our sensation, our emotion, our feeling. That is going to be our antenna, and that is the way that, to me, that we communicate with all the resources and the orchestrators of the universe, and help to, you know, to co-create whatever it is that we're moving ourselves into.
Yeah, the reason why I was laughing when you were saying about boredom and meditation, and the answers, I think, well, it's clear that we hold the key to all the answers we ever could think of, to all the questions we may create within our awareness. And if we sit in that stillness, if we create that still mind, that which we're searching for will show itself to us. And the quicker we can get to the stillness, of course, I'm still of the belief that if it's karma related, if karma determines that it's right for you to have the answer, then you will have it. And until we get to the other side of this transition, I think karma is still going to be playing its role. After that, I don't know where karma will lie in all this, but at the moment, it's still kind of determining certain aspects. And I think I also believe the reason why I was laughing, I nearly went off point. Sorry. The reason why I was laughing is because I remember I had been doing lots of thinking and contemplating and meditating and writing and analysing, and completely in tune, not in tune, but in a certain attunement with beings of light. And there was one particular thing what I could not find. Just one. I was able to find so many other aspects and put the jigsaw to a point together. And it's like, okay, I've got that, you know. And over the years, it took me 3 years to find that one thing. 3 years. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And of course, naturally, what is it? It's the most simple one. It was there all the time. But the conditions or circumstances wasn't right for Colin to see that for them 3 years. Correct. In that moment when Colin found it, you know, and it was like 3 years that struck me. 3 years, you know, and it just, but when it came together, when it appeared, it locked so many other aspects into place as well. Like, okay. And then it also dissolved so many aspects. So just quickly to Tjoni, to Sue, does not boredom come from the egoic mind, and therefore, as that dissolves, there shall be a different perception from a more blissful outlook? Yeah, totally agree with that. You are, Tjoni. You hope so.
Yeah, I'm a really bad meditator because I get so bored. I love the journey work. I love the quantum leaping work. I love doing all the things, but just trying to be quietly meditating, it's hard. That's really hard work.
I think you've got a good point there, Sue. Yeah, it's dissolving everything, and that word blissful, perception and blissful. Thank you so much, Sue. Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Mark John, it feels like everything is rising up in frequency, and there's a force that's trying to stop or disrupt it. Though it feels like it will get to a point of where it be very powerful, and our thinking is moving into the knowing frequency. Okay, over to you, Tjoni, for this one. I like this one. Thank you so much, Michael. I like this one. I've got a take on this.
Okay. Well, it actually reminds me of, I think I mentioned a meditation that I was in a little while ago, where we had our projectors of all of our various forms of reality, or all our various timelines, if you like, and that there was a definite beast in the background that was keeping everything hibernated. And that we're at the point now, as in just in the last maybe couple of months, where we are actually able to feed back to the projectors of our reality and affect that. So we're moving away from more and more away from victims and more into co-creationism. But the projectors themselves, they cannot get excited and bring their energy up, because as soon as they do, the proverbial beast is going to squash them. But when I was looking at it, the beast was only at about maybe 20% opacity, like it was really fading. And my feeling is that once it completely fades, it's almost like we're just going to hit this thing, and then everybody is just going to hit the ground running, like so fast. It's like this propulsion is, this energy is kind of building and building and building. And so it's almost like that critical mass of that, just there'll just be this huge surge. I'm already finding it here, in the last couple of months. You don't even have to think about something, and it just comes to you. And as this circle of women is growing and growing and growing here, we're finding more and more it's just creating this vortex, and you just think of something and bang, it's right in front of you, like literally walking up to you on the street. It's bizarre. So I agree with you, Mark. I think we are. It's really gaining a huge amount of superpower, like a giant glittery snowball.
I like that. You've got a glittery snowball. Move out the way. It's building in momentum. Oh, brilliant. Just quickly, if I may, on this one. Feels like everything rising up in frequency. There's a force that's trying to stop or disrupt it. Yeah, there is, Matt, totally. And we know it's very kind of obvious, and it keeps getting revealed more and more. It keeps trying to hide itself, and it's not. The light's kind of getting brighter and more intense and accelerating. I think what we've got is several aspects on here. We're definitely what I refer to as we're this world of duality, and in duality there's a mass of energy on both sides. And Tjoni just used the word critical mass. It's almost as if what we've done is deliberately, as cosmic beings, if we view ourselves as cosmic beings, we've deliberately collectively created this situation in this space, this plane of existence, so to speak, probably like a bunch of lunatics. And we've gone, okay, we need to create a critical mass, okay, because we need one thing. We need a chemical reaction. And what we're witnessing is the critical mass, the build-up. And therefore, the more people who awaken, what's experienced their awakening, an expansion of consciousness, we know when an awakening takes place, that light inside that mind just kind of sparks up a bit more. And that opens the door to all of it. Then the light starts shining brighter and brighter, the more they start healing, letting go, peeling layers back, etc. So what we're witnessing now is this momentum of light building up. And I believe we need to reach a certain frequency collectively as a species of light. And if we view this from somewhere in the cosmos and looking at this playing out, it gives us a bit of a clear picture as if we look at it in the form of particles and atoms and how they work. And we're at the center point somewhere over there in the distant regions of the cosmos. And all we're doing is just generating and attempting to generate enough light so that we get to that critical mass, and then we can have that chemical reaction. And it's that point where I see it is what I refer to as 0 point. And we can see 0 point with a duality and the mass on each side of duality globally on all sorts of levels without going into them. So naturally, the light is getting more brighter and building in intensity. And these waves of light accelerating into a huge crescendo. And if we say that on the other side, where we call it a negative aspect, is trying its damnedest to try and stop this event because it knows it's cornered. And so it's lashing out. And that's why we're seeing so many events. And just funny, I might as well chuck this in. And I think we're going to be seeing so many more specific events in 2025 this year, definitely. We started off with a bit of a bang anyway, and it will continue as far as I'm concerned, because we're building. We're likely going to see a new wave of spiritual awakenings this year. That's going to add to the light. But once we've got to that point, that critical mass, then and 0 point and boom, then maybe we trip over into that new space. Who knows? It's either going to be an event on itself, or it's going to be continue to be a gradual event. And as far as I'm concerned, the jury's out in my head. I'm not making no predictions which one it's going to be. So brilliant question, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right then. So that's an hour and 5 minutes.
It is. Not that time's irrelevant. It's just kind of a bit of an illusion, isn't it? But anyway, in this illusionary time-space continuum, I think I need to go and get some coffee.
Brilliant. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Tony.
Yes, I was just going to say thank you, everybody. And thank you, Colin. And thank you, Eva, again. As always, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure.
I loved it. Yeah, every time. And brilliant. Love it. Thank you for sharing your perception and take on everything, Tony. I love it. And I love that Akash. You got me with that one. The new Akash, creating a new Akash. So how can people reach it? I think Ava's going to be putting some stuff up. We know Tony's in Luxor in Egypt. We're still waiting. There you go.
Yeah. The website tjoni.com. That's for my writing and my coaching and all of that kind of cool stuff. And you can find me on just go straight to the website, and on the contact page you can see all my various social media links and stuff like that there. There's lots going on. And we have Luxor Life Egypt, which you can also find on Instagram if you're coming to Luxor and you'd like to get in touch. So yeah.
Yes. And we're still waiting on that date to get over there.
I can't
wait. The retreat in Egypt is still on. It's just waiting for that door to open, and and I'm like, I'm not stepping into it. I'm not imputing anything. So it's like, okay, they know.
Yeah, we're all over here with all of our funky little houses and our camels and stuff, just waiting for you to come and hang out.
We can't wait. And I know a lot of people will join us. Some of the beautiful minds we've got, definitely, they can't wait to get over there. And they're looking forward to it. Just before we go, I'd like to say a special thank you for yourself, Tony. And if I can take this chance, I'd like to say a really nice deep thank you and appreciation to our other guests and teachers this week. We've had Jennifer Rose on with the mediumship, and to Pauline Barnfather for last night's presentation. Monday, we've got meditations on a daily basis, every day, 5 o'clock, just for 30 minutes if you want to join us. And please check the website out and Facebook page. We've got lots of stuff up there. And looking forward to the very next chat with you, Tony. And I've still got 10 questions left.
Okay, we'll save those for next time then. I'll look forward to it.
Lots of love. Thank you, Tony. Thank you to everybody. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.